Good afternoon, everybody. Glad y'all can make it out this evening. Welcome to the Town Council Town Hall meeting, February the 19th, 2022. Can I get a roll call?
Volk present.
Holloway present. O'Brien present. I'm a little wired.
Constable Fulmer's running a little bit late. He will be joining us at some point in time during this meeting. I would like to say this evening, we're going to call it, or this afternoon, we're going to do it a little bit different. We did it the other night. Mr. Hose is going to give a brief overview. We're going to have the two presentations from each, our consultant and Virginia American Water. And then we're going to open it up to questions. I would like to ask that you raise your hand and I'll pick you and just pass the mic around and speak clearly into the mic, please. So at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Hose.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Seems like the mics are working today. Yeah, okay. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for coming out on a beautiful Saturday afternoon. Appreciate your time. This is a pretty important topic. We've been working on this for quite some time, and I just wanted to give a brief overview on process and where we are and next steps. For those of you who may be following this, we've been working on this for a really long time. It's been a little more than 18 months now when we got our first unsolicited proposal from a company to come in and want to purchase our utilities. We developed our procedures based on state law to deal with that, and what the state code says is that we have to advertise that we got an unsolicited proposal so that other people could also provide unsolicited proposals. And when we did that, we got a second proposal. And so we've been, then we went out and hired a consultant who knows more about this than we do so that they could advise us throughout the process. And we've been working through that, and council's been evaluating those. And in January, the council selected one of the two companies to move on to the public phase, and that's where we are today. Virginia American Water was the company selected. And at this point, we're just gathering information. We want to hear what the public has to say. No decisions have been made. The decision point before the council right now is not whether or not we are going to sell our utilities or not. That's not the decision point. The decision point that is before the council right now is, do they want to move to the next phase? The next phase would be to sit down with the company and negotiate all the fine details that would be necessary for an agreement. That's the only decision point before us. If the council decides to do that, we would bring back a final agreement that would be public. Okay, you're all going to get to see that final agreement, and we'd have a public hearing, and you'd be able to comment on that agreement before the council decides to either accept it or reject it. So we've been through a long process. There's still a long way to go, and this is not your last opportunity to speak. This is just one of several in the process. So that's where we are in the process. I'm going to introduce Virginia American Water, Casey Allen. He's going to give his introduction and introduce his company to all of you, to the community, and I'll let Casey introduce his people.
So we got 3 microphones. I think this one's mine. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Casey Allen. I'm the Vice President of Operations for Virginia American Water Company. Very excited to be here today and appreciate everyone coming out on a Saturday. I think we've got a lot of good things to present and hopefully going to have a lot of good questions. So once we get to that point, look forward to answering those. Give a little bit of background about me. I've been in the water industry right out of high school. Started in a distribution maintenance role for water and wastewater, and have kind of worked my way up. The only time that I've not spent in the water industry is actually whenever I served in the Air Force, so I took a little bit of time away from that. I'm an Air Force veteran. I saw the hat, so I figured I'd put that out there. I'm going to pass the mic over to my team to give a little bit of background on them, and then we'll get started on the introduction of the company.
Good afternoon. I'm Christina McGee. I'm the engineering director for Virginia. I've been with the company for 14 years, and I'm a Navy veteran, so if there's any Navy out there, yeah. All right, good. I don't want to be outnumbered. I've been basically an engineer my whole career, and it's my 30th year as an engineer. So I'm going to pass it over to Christian.
Thanks. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Christian Volk, Water Quality Manager for Virginia and Maryland. I have 24 years of experience, research, water quality, and production.
Good afternoon. My name is J.R. Fittler. I'm from the operations side of the water industry. Been with American Water for 12 years and just across the bay in the Northern Neck Middle Peninsula.
I'll introduce the rest of the folks so that you can kind of see who we do have in the room. In the back corner, Mary Beth, she is our Manager of External Affairs and Communications. We got Dennis, he's actually with our financing department. And then we got Rob, who is with Corporate BD. So give a little bit of overview about our company, and I think one of the things that I really want to get out on this presentation is, we are not new to Virginia. Virginia American Water has been in the state of Virginia for almost 170 years. Our oldest operation is in Alexandria, where we started in the 1850s. We also provide water service to the city of Hopewell since the 1930s. We have both water and wastewater in Prince William County and Dale City. 20,000 connections on each, kind of give you the size of that operation. We also serve several community-type water systems in the Northern Neck, which JR has direct oversight of. And we also provide military services to Fort Lee. Falls underneath our operations. Outside of Virginia American Water, we also have military operations for Fort AP Hill and also Fort Belvoir, and recently signed an agreement with the town of Waverly to partner with them on their water system. So you can kind of see our footprint there. Obviously we don't have a water system on the Eastern Shore and are looking forward to the opportunity to maybe change that. This slide, I just want to point out, is slightly different than the slide that we presented on Wednesday. And the main reason is that there were a lot of words. We got feedback that you couldn't read it. But I do want to point everyone's attention in the package that we handed out. The last slide on the appendix, that slide is there, so that everybody can kind of see the same slide. A few things that you'll hear about in our presentation that I want to speak on. First and foremost, any potential deal that we would negotiate with the town, if the town decides to move forward with negotiations, employees. We're making a commitment and have made a commitment that every employee that currently works for the town will continue to have a job, so long as they can pass a drug, alcohol background check. Those employees will also be given the tools that our current employees have in terms of our technology and equipment, access to resources, and even training. One of the things that we're very proud of at Virginia American Water, we recently completed construction of a new training facility in Prince William County that has the latest and greatest tools, and Cape Charles employees will be able to leverage that if they become our employees. The other thing that I want to touch base on real quick, we got a lot of questions on Wednesday about rates, so I want to get out in front of that, right off the bat. Any proposal that we negotiate with the town will include rates that will stay the same and generally trend down. And the reason why that is, it's not so much a commitment where we say, hey, we're going to lower rates for a period of time, and then you'll see those jump back up. What we're proposing is to bring the town of Cape Charles rates into our consolidated rates in the state of Virginia. So in the state of Virginia, actually in state law, utilities, private utilities, are required to consolidate their rates. So as you can imagine, the footprint that I showed in the slide before, we have a lot of customers in the state of Virginia. We have a lot of water customers, we have a lot of wastewater customers, and there are certainly some benefits that come along with that, the size and scale. So those rates that you'll see in the next presentation are reflective of bringing Cape Charles rates, down into our rates. It's not a gimmick where, hey, we'll artificially bring rates down and then they're going to pop back up. It's just allowing the town of Cape Charles to take advantage of rates that are already out there, which I will point out are reflective of 170 years of service to the state of Virginia. So it's not, like we are going to double rates for the customers we already have. The other thing that I will call out, and Christina's going to touch more on, investment in our communities. We bring a lot of capital to the state of Virginia. We spend a lot of time planning for and identifying projects that are important for the systems that we currently serve. We will be doing the same for the town of Cape Charles if we're chosen to move forward. Christina's going to talk about that. JR is going to talk about customers and safety and some of the benefits we bring with that way. But just a high-level overview of what we're going to talk about. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Christian Volk to talk a little bit about water quality and some of the things that we kind of see as a high level that we can bring to Cape Charles right off the bat.
Thanks. So I'm going to talk a little bit about water quality. And I just have a few key points. And the first one is going to be about compliance. And for us, really meeting compliance is critical. And we're really going to strive to meet all US EPA and state regulations. So in your case here for the town of Cape Charles, in the past you had some issues meeting some limits, some US EPA limits, and it was about disinfection byproducts. And for us, one priority would be to do a study to make sure we can decrease those disinfection byproducts. The next key point is about testing, and all the advanced testing using sophisticated equipment is going to be done at one central location. It's located in Belleville, Illinois. And we do additional testing at all the treatment plant facilities. So we have small labs, we have certified labs, and also we rely on online monitoring, so continuous monitoring, so one machine generating data all the time. And this is key, and it would be key for here in Cape Charles to monitor specific parameters like iron, manganese, hardness, color, chlorine. And if one parameter goes up, you can quickly adjust treatment so you don't end up with a bunch of water quality complaints. The last key point is about research and innovation, and we do a lot of research. All the testing research, it's going to be done at the central lab, so in Illinois, and all the, as far as applied research, treatment research is going to be done in combination of Belleville Lab, Central Laboratory, and also the treatment facilities. And I'm going to give you one example here in Virginia. We have one site, and this site has experienced bad smells and taste in the past. So we did a study, and we used an advanced oxidation system using UV light and peroxide, and the system worked really well to remove the bad smell and taste. And last year we were able to install this type of system, so advanced oxidation at this location. And now we are ready for the next bad smell and taste event. We're going to be ready to make sure we don't have any issues and customer complaints. I'm going to take a couple of minutes to talk about your water supply here. And if you look in your information package, there is one slide here. And I can basically summarize this slide. It's called the Proposed Drinking Water Improvements Related to Customer Complaints. And they applied to your system. And the first point is about discolored water. So you know about rusty water, yellow water. The reason is you have extremely high levels of iron and manganese. And you can do a few things to mitigate iron and manganese to make sure you don't have any rusty water complaints. And at the treatment plant level, we can do a few things. And you need to make sure you provide stable treatment, constant treatment, and no spike. So to make sure you don't have iron, small amount of iron going in your distribution system. So as far as what to do, full plant automation, so a computer system controlling treatment. So it's one step. And you also combined it with online monitoring, so to have continuous monitoring of critical parameters. We would probably replace your chemical feed systems and probably look at other types of oxidants to oxidize iron and manganese better. You have filtration media. We would look at your filtration media and probably replace the media. Distribution system, we can do stuff as well, so flushing, whether it's flushing the entire distribution system or localized flushing, probably at the end of the system when the water is stagnant, the water quality is going to change. We're probably going to look at feeding a corrosion inhibitor, and basically it's going to prevent rust formation in the pipes. So that's all I have on the discolored water. Here also you have a hard water and you have treatment, so you have a softening, and again good softening is going to rely on plant automation and online monitoring. And you have a softening media. We can look at replacing this media as well. Last is about bad smell and taste. A very common issue in surface water, not as common in groundwater. And it can be related to a few things, organic matter, or in groundwater, probably it's going to be a combination of metals and minerals. And within American water, we dealt with those kinds of bad smell and taste. We have a treatment available, and we've been able to mitigate those bad smell and taste. Here, for your town, the critical thing would be to identify the cause of the issue first, and then we can figure out the best treatment option. That's all I have on the water quality.
So unfortunately, you have to listen to me talk about our community involvement and our customer experience. Simply put, we care about what our employees care about. For years, you know, we've supported what Christian or Christina or Casey care about in their communities, and that's the type of organizations we'd be a part of. But just to point out a few examples, the city of Hopewell, and they have sort of a Main Street initiative type program. It's called the Third Thursday. It was designed to revitalize their downtown area, and we've been a part of that from day one. We are also involved in local food banks. The picture on the far right that you see in your pictures here, we are part of a gleaning program, which is kind of fun. We go out and we harvest the food to go to those that, you know, that need it. And it's made it a group effort that people from all over our state's districts come down and participate in. It's a good chance to get outside, get some physical activity, burn a few calories, something that I know I could use more of. And we're also involved in school activities, supply drives for the kids when they go back to school, as well as we do some water quality instructional periods. I know Christian's team does that a lot with a lot of schools. Kind of switching gears, we also offer a variety of grants through the American Water Charitable Foundation. Some of those would be the firefighting grants that we offer to firefighters and rescue services. We also do an environmental grant that helps protect drinking water quality in the watersheds around us. So simply put, you know, all of these funding opportunities would be available to Cape Charles, you know, should we move forward in our partnership, and hopefully, you know, that happens. And I can speak for the group here. We love the town, and we just need a reason to come participate in the organizations that you have. So switching over to customer service, and I'm going to be kind of brief on this. I think I'm a little long-winded in the past. We measure ourselves regularly throughout the year on customer feedback and employee feedback on what we could do differently and what we could do better. And that's something that's important to us because we always want to deliver, that top-notch service. One thing that people think is, or make the argument that is a disadvantage, is our size. And in reality, that's an advantage that we have. We are able to offer to our customers and our employees in the field technology that's not available elsewhere. Some of the examples up here, we have, the websites for the customers. We have the different bill payment options, all kinds of different technology that a small town may or may not be able to afford to do. And then for the tools in the field for our employees, it's all kinds of tools that a large company like us, we have available every day for our employees. The main point to make is we still offer that same face-to-face customer experience that you deal with now. We just have the tools to make it easier for our employees to support you all as customers. Thank you.
Hey, thanks, JR. This next slide kind of speaks directly to what JR is talking about, and I'll give kind of a good example. It's been, 5 years since I've been directly working with the field, but one of the things that was really neat, that I was part of, as it was transitioning in our business, is automatic meter reading and the capabilities that it brings to it. So the meters are no longer like they have been for the last 50 years. There's a lot of technology behind it. And I'll give a quick example. A customer calls in and says, hey, I've got a hot water bill. We send a technician out to the field. They have that face-to-face contact that JR is referring to. But instead of looking at the meter and being like, well, yeah, you got a leak, we've got a device now tied directly to the meter where we can show a data log by 15-minute increments. It says, yes, you are using a lot of water, and it will either be constant or you can pinpoint time frames. And sometimes we can even tell what type of leak it is. Like a toilet has certain indications that, hey, it's not a steady leak, but a toilet might be running. And it's really neat to be able to show that to customers. A lot of times it resonates with them. It's like, oh yeah, I got to get my toilet fixed. And then when the customer fixes that toilet, we then give them a credit for half the overage of the usage. So you're not only helping the customer fix the leak and identify the issue, but we're also able to help them with their bills related to that. There's a lot of other technology out there, that we leverage that's not quite as customer facing, but it's really important for us on the operations side to maintain compliance. And also, Christina's going to talk a little bit more about technology and how it drives capital improvements. I'll give a quick example. This photo here is from the town of Waverly. As I mentioned before, we just recently signed, an asset purchase agreement with them for a partnership. And one of the challenges that town had is that their employees really only found their water mains when they started leaking. They didn't have a good map, per se. They had some drawings that they had put together over years, but no as-built and no GIS. So one of the first things that we did was we sent our folks out, start taking GIS locations so we can figure out where those valves are at and hydrants are at. And then when you know where the valves and hydrants are at, you can start drawing lines, and figuring out where the mains are at. And then we continue to build onto that. Once we, get fully integrated into the system, every time we dig up a main, we take a GIS point. So now we know exactly where that main's at. It just allows us to become more efficient, but also focus in on mains that need to be replaced. Behind the scenes, asset management, distribution, production, preventive maintenance, that's big words to say. We keep track of how we maintain our assets. So pumps and motors and things like that, we can capture when we touch them, when we do maintenance. We can, take photos. We can, track conditions. When the field goes out, they can take notes, and all of that is accessible to everybody. So if an FSR goes out and talks with a customer, the next person that goes out, to fix a leak has that same interaction. It just really makes for better employee experience, but then also an experience for our customers. And I'm going to send it over to Christina to talk a little bit about how this feeds into her team's efforts related to engineering and projects.
Thanks. So Casey talked a lot about the technology that the field uses, and my engineering group of 15, we take all that data back and we do a comprehensive planning study using that data. And during that time, we can identify lots of different types of projects. So we look at demands, and so do we have growth issues? We look at compliance. Do we have treatment issues? We look at production. Can we produce, are we still producing what we said we were going to be producing out of a well or out of a facility? So we're looking broadly into the future as to what we need, and we're planning those projects according through the CPS. And so some of the technology that I'll use that's up here is I'll be using MapCall. MapCall is an asset management program that we have at American Water. It allows me to know the age and every type of repair or touch that's happened on a pump or a motor or a generator or anything of that nature. It allows me to really know the history of the equipment, kind of like knowing the history of your car. You know when you need to get brakes done because of that. So I use this technology all the time. And then we use water modeling. Water modeling allows me to look at a system, allows me to know where the distribution system migrates, how long it takes from the pump house to get to your front door. I can get it down to within a few minutes of how long it takes. And from there, I can determine whether I need to flush or whether we need to enlarge pipes or add additional piping in a certain particular area. So it's all about the technology, using that data, analyzing the data, and putting it out to the field. And so thank you. I'm gonna show you some projects that we did in the last 2 years. So up in the upper left-hand corner is our Ops Center in Prince William that Casey spoke about earlier. That is a new facility we built. It also has a training facility for all of our employees. They can actually work on taking pipes apart, work on a hydrant out there. They can work on meters. It's an opportunity without the pressure of trying to fix a water main break in the middle of the night when it's freezing cold to actually learn how to do it hands-on and work at it. So it's a really great facility for our employees. In the bottom left is our Hopewell facility. That's an aerial shot of our surface water plant there. In the upper middle is a Decanter Project. We had a wastewater plant that we just recently finished. We replaced all the decanters, and that project really was a preventative project to allow us not to get NOVs. Decanters are like any other piece of mechanical equipment. They eventually wear out. When they wear out, they're gonna not do what they need to do, and in wastewater, you don't have an opportunity to not do what you need to do. The green in the middle, that's some new pumps in Hopewell. Below that is some new electrical equipment that supports the pumps. And then we have a well station in the upper right-hand corner. That's in the Westmoreland Shores, that's in JR's district. And then in the bottom right there is, you can kind of see it in the side, it says UV effluent. That's the UV and AOP system that Christian spoke about that's at our Hopewell plant. All right.
Thanks, Christina. You know, I'm gonna sum it up, but before I go to the summary slide, I just want to call out a few things because this just really gets me excited in maybe a nerdy or geeky type of way. You know, these pictures in front of you kind of show one thing that all water systems have in common, and that is that they are getting older and they need investment. You know, it's not unique to the town of Cape Charles. It's true for us. You know, we still have more projects in addition to this that we're working on. But there's two things that are really, you know, interesting. The Westmoreland well station, you know, that's a well station in JR's neck of the woods, and that, you know, JR serves a community of a few hundred people, is that right?
Almost 700 connections.
Yep, 700 connections. So, you know, an investment like that, you know, $1 to $2 million, it'd be hard for those 700 people to be able to afford that, you know, and get that in the rates. You know, that's a value that our consolidation brings to our current customers, and it's also a value that the town of Cape Charles would receive, you know, should we move forward with this. And the last slide, you know, I'll be quick on this. I show this every time. These are my three boys. The main point of this is we appreciate your time, you know, and allow us to speak today, but also, you know, our faces are probably new to a lot of you, but, you know, the town of Cape Charles, to JR's earlier point, you know, is not new to us. A lot of us vacation here. JR grew up in the area, vacation and fish in this area. So, again, we're really excited to be a part of the community if we get the chance. So I think it's over to you now. So last time I didn't pass the clicker over, so I'll do that so we don't have those awkward moments. Here's your mic.
Thank you. As the slides are getting pulled up here, my name is Eric Colokia. I'm with New Gen Strategies and Solutions. We are a consulting firm that is focused on municipal utilities, providing management and consulting advice to electric, natural gas, solid waste, and of course, water and wastewater utilities. My background is in economics and math. I've been doing this work for about a dozen years. We are out of Annapolis, Maryland. It's a pleasure to be here on a weekend. I appreciate you taking the time. Again, our firm has been doing this work since 2012, but our senior management has been doing it for much longer. We are a new firm. We took a different perspective than some of the other firms that do this work. We have just over 50 people, 12 offices throughout the country. Again, I'm working out of Annapolis. Our role in this process was as an advisor to the town. When these two proposals were laid out in front of them, they engaged us to look at them using our expertise and our history in going through this process with other communities and to evaluate them. I'm going to show you some things here and I'll talk about our approach. You may have a different approach. I think this is the opportunity to tell the town what you think is important as opposed to what we may think is important so that we can move through this process. The first thing I'll talk about is what we call a decision matrix. This is our attempt of quantifying what matters throughout this process. We developed an initial decision matrix after our review of the proposals. We brought that to council. We talked to them about it. They gave us their input. We revised the matrix after talking with the two proposers. And ultimately, what this reflects is a weighted criteria ranking of what is important and how do these two scenarios compare to each other. The two scenarios being the town maintains ownership or Virginia American Water owns the two systems. On the next slide, I described these in a little bit, but I'll keep it up here to talk specifically about the weighting. The weighting is our, again, attempt at saying what is important after discussion with council. So for instance, customer affordability and rate stability is rated at 1.6. That means whatever score we give that, we multiply it by 1.6. It is weighted more than, for instance, net cash flow to the town. If those two categories had the same score, the customer affordability would rank higher in terms of how it impacts our decision. These arrows indicate when compared to each other for each of these criteria, which of these was scored more advantageous to the customer based on these criteria. For instance, I think customer affordability is pretty straightforward. In which of these cases, based on the proposals and based on our evaluation of the existing system, are rates better for the customer? Need for professional expertise. We talked a lot about this in the previous town hall. What is it going to take in the future to run these systems, to meet the environmental quality regulations that are here today and will be here tomorrow? What is it going to take to do that? How much is it going to cost over the next 10 years? We did a 10-year projection. We'll see in a bit. Assumptions. I want to talk about what the score of assumptions mean. This is how confident are we in the assumptions in each of these cases. Planned capital expenditures. How confident are we that the plans laid out in these two scenarios is going to happen and what that impact may be? We're going to talk, I think, a lot about the Annexation Agreement. The Annexation Agreement is an asset to the town, so to speak, in that when certain capital improvement projects need to happen, right now the town has the ability to get some revenue to pay for those improvements to offset the impact on customers. That's obviously going to be incorporated into this potential deal, but how confident are we in how that will work and what that may look like in both of these cases? Similar story with connection fee revenue. How is that? System growth how is connection fee revenue going to be accounted for in each of these scenarios? Connection system growth. Both of these scenarios include the same estimation of how many new customers are going to connect to the system. New customers means connection fee revenue. It also means additional rate revenue as customers use more water. We use the same assumption in both scenarios to develop the forecast that you're going to see. Reputation and track record. How has each of these entities managed their systems that they own and operate in the past? How well may they be able to do that in the future? That was the evaluation we had on that criteria. Virginia American talked about customer service. Customer service varies widely. There are different approaches to customer service. when the town talks about customer service, how does that look like going forward? When Virginia American talks about their approach to customer service and the tools they have, how does that look going forward? What do we think, based on our experience, customer perception, ratepayer perception is of how customer service works? That's what we looked at in that. Treatment of existing employees, Casey mentioned that. We know what that looks like under the town's status quo. Virginia American's proposal described how they would approach existing employees and their future training and development, and that's how we scored that criteria. And I think net cash flow to the town is the easiest. One of these scenarios results in cash flow to the town. One of these results in the town outlaying a lot of cash for the investments in the future. So what does this look like? I'll skip this slide. I essentially went through those. You can see those in the handouts. If you have any questions, we can talk about that. What does this look like in the future for a Cape Charles ratepayer? We did a 10-year forward-looking estimation, a forecast of what rates may look like. This is an estimation. Things will certainly change, and they will certainly change based on the assumptions that you put into this. I'll talk a little bit about this yellow line. This yellow line is what we're calling status quo. The town maintains ownership of the systems. The town acquires the necessary expertise to run these systems, whether it's additional staff, whether it's contracting that expertise out. And most importantly, the town makes the capital investments in the system that need to happen over the next 5 to 10 years, based on the plan that is available to you. It's a published capital improvement plan, and our estimation of what that may be in the future. I want to be clear, this yellow line is driven by capital investment. The existing operation and the potential future operation of the systems do have an impact on this line. But what dollars go into the assets of the system is what's driving this projection. An extra million or two, more or less, has a major impact on that forecast. So if you have questions about what's included in there relative to this next slide and the information you have, we can talk about that. The blue line is just for reference. That is the current rate, the current bill for someone who uses 2,000 gallons per month in the town. The gray line is based on the proposed incorporation of the town into Virginia American's consolidated rate, the estimated trend of a customer's bill at that same level going forward 10 years. And I know we'll talk about what goes into that and the assumptions that are included in there. Again, this process includes estimations. If there is something that is important to you that you don't think is being accounted for, we'd like to hear that. I'm sure the town would like to hear that. But this is based on our expertise and having done this many, many times, an earnest estimation of what these two situations may look like going forward. This slide just lists our assumptions. I won't go through them in detail. They're provided in the material. It talks about the current budget and escalating, the costs of operating the system I talked about. The town does have debt payable on the systems. It's included in our forecast, although there's no new debt in this time frame. Capital investment, it assumes the town will draw down on some reserves significantly over the 10-year period. It will need to in order to support that capital improvement plan. So the rates in here are not the only thing supporting the system. It's also the connection fees relative to growth, and it's also a drawdown on reserves. That's all the material I have, and I believe we'd be happy to take questions.
So I appreciate it. I appreciate both of them.
Eric.
So like I said, for those of you who just
chart back
joined,
up.
Oh, sorry.
once we start
does that mean?
taking questions, just raise your hand, stand up, state your name, address for the record, and continue standing while you're asking the question. And we have microphones up here, and we'll just pass the mics around, and while your hand's up, I'll pick who's next in line. So, all right.
My question basically is not to the group who presented, but my name is Diane Davis, resident Cape Charles, and I have a question to the town council. Could you tell me, I don't know whether you can or not, why did you choose this particular group to do the project if you follow through?
So basically, as Mr. Hose has stated earlier, we received an unsolicited proposal. We had to put it out there. We received a second proposal. We then went through a long process. We hired NextGen to assist with that. We interviewed both, and after interviewing both, we felt that Virginia American Water was the best qualified, not to take anything away from Aqua. They were very qualified too, but we felt as a group that Virginia American Water was the best.
Okay, may I have one more? I have several questions, but I asked this one. Based on the different maybe towns or counties where they have done work, have you all talked with any of those people, any of those counties and all, to see how they felt about what they had, the system and all?
Yes, we have. It's been a little difficult trying. A lot of the communities have been difficult to get a hold of. But yes, I've gotten 2 reference checks of the 3 main acquisitions. I've talked to the city of Alexandria and to the city of Hopewell. Talked to their management folks, and both of those have given positive references to Virginia American Water.
Okay, and the last one. Based on the different things that were said, now we spent a lot of money for whatever the plan is that's across the hump. Will any of that be used? Will we have to just start fresh, or will those things, will we be able to eliminate some of the expenses because we do have that plant that's over the hump? Is it called the sewage treatment plant or whatever?
Could you restate the question? I'm not sure I understand.
Is it called the sewage treatment plant that we have over the hump?
Yes.
Okay, based on that and what they will be doing, will anything be still in place there, or will they have to come up with a different location for what they have to do?
No, we're proposing selling that. So all of our infrastructure, both the wastewater treatment plant and the water plant, and all of the pump stations, all the infrastructure that goes with both water and wastewater, that's what we're proposing selling. We'd be selling that to Virginia American Water. They would own it, they would maintain it, they would run it, they would make future investments in it as needed.
So they will have all of it?
Yes.
Okay, and we'll...
And they have pledged to keep all of our employees. So all of our employees would have a job. They've also, their president has also assured me that they would have a hold harmless, which means that they would be making at least what they are making now, probably more because they pay more than we do.
I would hope so.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, but that's very important, and please make sure that it's in writing, because further down the line, when all of you are gone, we like this plan, if we go with it, whatever, it's going to be still going on.
Okay.
Okay,
Ms.
thank
Davis, can you hand the mic to us?
And just on that last point, going back to the decision, one step that we left out was both proposers made presentations to staff, and we solicited feedback from the staff as well. So it wasn't just us.
Ann Hayward Walker. I live on 306 Bay Avenue in town. So I have 2 questions, but just following up to the employee questions. I realize it's hard to predict, but if they pass their drug test and things like that, are you expecting this to be like a 1-year commitment for salary? Are you looking at this for a longer period of time? Can you give any sense of that for employees?
Yes. So, I would say that, there are no short-term or long-term plans to decrease headcount, for those who serve the town of Cape Charles. Obviously, as any employer would, you monitor employment. If somebody, does something egregious, you got to address those things. That's an HR function. Right. But, the commitment is for, the long term, not just a year.
Great. And one more question for my neighbor who can't be here today. She lives next to the pumping station on corner of Monroe and Harbor. Or John Lockwood's not here. Somebody from Public Works? Anybody from Public Works here? Anyway, there's a pumping station. She's wondering, she was thinking that she was worried about that pumping station increasing in size. So I guess my thought was pumping stations don't necessarily have to increase. But anyway, I just need to tell her an answer that I asked her a question.
Yeah, so, I'm going to pass the mic over to Christina because she does a lot of pump station upgrades, and she can talk a little bit about pumps and efficiencies and noise and things like
Okay.
that.
She's worried about the noise, if a bigger pumping station and all that sort of thing.
So I'd love to be able to tell you, no, it's never going to increase. But let me say it this way. There's a lot you can do within a facility, and there's a lot you can do for sound attenuation, which is the noise that she hears. So without knowing the facts of that particular pump station, it's very hard for me to say. But I have a lot of range of pumps that I can use. I can change the type of pump. So there's a lot of options in my toolbox to fix this pump station if it needs to be enlarged. Right. And you can, when you design a pump, you can really design now to know exactly how much noise will be 5 feet away from the pump, 10 feet away from the pump, and how much noise there'll be at a property line. So that can all be controlled and can be mitigated in the design. Since I don't know that pump station particularly.
So let me help you a little bit. So some of the pumping stations in town are not right next to residences. This one happens to be right next to a residence at a corner of a residential street, and she's next to it. And so she didn't know she wasn't sure it was a real pumping. I said, well, that's a pumping station. That's not like a treatment facility or anything. Yeah. So I guess the other thing then, what I'm hearing is that if you increase the capacity of the sewage treatment plant and or the water facility, say if Bay Creek keeps growing and growing and growing, and I guess that means you could then have to, I guess I'm trying to understand under what circumstances you would have to increase the capacity of one pumping station in the middle of a residential area as opposed to the ones scattered around the town. So you guys know what I mean, right?
Yeah, I think, so.
Oh, good, Bob.
I'm sorry that I don't know this particular pumping station.
You're talking about the Pine Street pump station, and yeah, there are four gravity pump stations in the Old Town district, including Mason Avenue, which is the big one. The biggest catchment basin is Plum Street. That's the highest volume. The lowest is Washington Avenue. Pine Street is not that big. And the only reason that would be enlarged in capacity is if additional significant development occurred in that catchment area. And yeah.
Is it well built out?
It's almost entirely built out.
Yeah, that influences that.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you.
Jim Altadonna, 223 Monroe Street. This is for Eric.
Please stay.
Please stand. Okay, 223 Monroe. The 2,000 gallon, I guess, per month, is that the average for Cape Charles?
The average, I believe, is closer to 3,000, but the 2,000 was used as a representation of a minimum bill. So the Cape Charles rate structure has a minimum fee that you pay no matter what, and it includes 2,000 gallons of usage for both water and wastewater. About a third of it is water, about 2/3 of it is wastewater. We use that as a metric as what someone's bill would be essentially no matter what per month, and it would increase from there if they used more than 2,000 gallons of water.
And do we have any idea from American Water what that increase would be? For additional gallons? Because it's only projected at, people are saying, okay, we're going to go down, but they're not seeing, what happens if they use more than 2,000 gallons.
Right.
So maybe going forward, I understand,
Yeah,
but
so
maybe going forward,
Yeah.
maybe a nice communication to the community so everyone knows what's going on. And the other thing, Eric, I'm very concerned because you're drinking Deer Park water and they're drinking American water. So what's going on there?
On my trip down 13, I had to make a pit stop.
Is that it? You sure? You're sure? Okay, nothing we should know.
That is correct, yes.
Okay, my other question is
At a
for
Wawa.
American Water. How do you treat the fire service, our volunteer fire department? How are their water needs met in terms of fire hydrants? Is there charges for that? Do they get charged for the gallons they use in house situations and fires? I'd like to hear that.
Yep, so I'm answering this as a prior aircraft firefighter with the Air Force was my role there. I will say that the fire departments are our biggest advocates. You know, we do not charge for use of fire hydrants for purposes of training and or to fight fires. And also to go to your other point, you know, I think it's very important for everyone to know because we got a lot of questions about rates and historical rates and things like that. So I came a little bit better prepared to speak to that. And, you know, the biggest part of that yellow line really relates to wastewater charges. I mean, I think wastewater is the biggest expense here, and our story is very, very good related to wastewater in our consolidated rates. And it's actually, you know, it's kind of good for two reasons. One, our biggest wastewater rate base in the state of Virginia is the Dale City operations in Prince William County. We acquired that in 2013, I believe, started operations in 14. You know, since we purchased that system, we have actually decreased the bills, you know, over the last couple of years. So for 2,000 gallons, you know, they saw a total of about a 36% decrease, which is about 13 to 14% decrease year over year. Their 2,000 gallon price went from $31.23 to $20, you know, for a minimum bill. It's pretty good. Compare that to the 60 something dollar, you know, for wastewater in the town. 3,000 gallons is still a third of what, you know, the charge is for the town. So I think, you know, overall, as those, you know, gallons go up, it's still a very favorable story to tell, particularly on the wastewater side, which is the biggest portion of the bill.
Okay, we also, you know, Mayor asked me to do some homework, so I did. There was some hiccups in Hopewell, Virginia. Could you speak about that?
I absolutely can. You know, as the Vice President of Operations, last year, actually 1 year and 1 week to date, we suffered a direct impact from an ice storm. Okay. You know, I had an impact at my house and was without power for almost 2 weeks. We also had power outage at the Hopewell plant. And that did result in an outage. And, you know, I was there personally, you know, through the whole week. Unfortunately, in our business, you know, when you have mechanical components of a plant, they are subject to failure. What I would say is that we leveraged our entire employee base in the state to respond to that. We got the electrical service restored quickly. Again, electrical service was a result of a failure on the electrical provider side. And then there was a missed transformer put in that caused damage to some of our equipment, so we had no impact over that. Those things do happen. They're subject to happen in Cape Charles. And I think, you know, when you think about weather events, this being a coastal community, I think it's even more important, right? Because you have hurricanes and things like that that can come out.
That's my next question.
Yep.
Are we going to have generators at some of these pump stations? Like, are you putting that into the plan?
Absolutely. And I'm going to turn it over to Christina because she can talk, you know, quite extensively about generators, some of the things we did in Hopewell, and specifically what we're looking at for.
Every pump station has emergency.
They
Yep.
do. Oh, they do.
Yep. So you want to expand a little bit?
Every pump station has an emergency generator.
So one thing that American Water has really started to adopt is, so try not to get too engineering on you guys, but a generator comes with a size and a capacity, how much it can fire. What we're looking at in American Water is instead of having one really big generator, we're looking at getting, in most of our places, 2 generators that can be run what they call in parallel. And it's an electronic way that they can phase together, and it can produce what the plant needs. So we're in American Water now looking at every one of our plants and saying, let's take those generators when they phase out, as in get old, replace them with 2 parallel generators so that half the plant can run if something were to go mechanically wrong with one of the generators. And it gives a second layer of insurance to a plant. It may mean that a town may have to be more conservative. You know, if it's on a water side, we may have to conserve, but we will have water, and that's the critical component. So that's where we're heading with generators, and I'm very excited to see that we're doing it a lot in Virginia. And basically, after the event that happened with Casey, we've done that both low service and high service in Hopewell.
And last question. SCC.
Yes.
Okay, you propose the rates, and they dictate what you can charge, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so it's not up to the SCC to set it's up to them to set the rate, but not to propose the rate.
That is.
That comes from you.
That is correct. And then also, specific to consolidation, that's state law. So, for the SEC, we would most certainly move towards a consolidated rate. The thing that would be kind of up in the air for question that the SEC would weigh in with feedback from customers here, and also our other customers, is the timing of that.
And how do we stand at that $94 figure compared to the rest of the state? In terms of all the municipalities that you have, the average monthly bill, are we on the high side? Are we on the low side? Where are we in that figure? Compared to like
just by nature of the fact that you see those rates going down, you are higher, most definitely.
No, but I'm saying compared to other municipalities.
So if I could jump in, that gray line is the statewide rate.
That's the average statewide rate.
Right, that's a consolidated rate. So we're not sure on the timing, but you see a general trend down, and you see about 2028. That's about where it is. Now after that, inflation's going to start creeping back up again.
Okay.
But you can see there that's the statewide consolidated rate as compared to the yellow line, which would be ours if we kept it.
And the statewide, as we had learned last time, was set by the SEC.
That's correct.
And will they let us into that statewide rate, correct?
Correct. That we have to make a case.
Is that part of the negotiation?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Let me clarify one thing. I don't know exactly what you were asking, but that is a comparison to Virginia American Water's rate. If you want a comparison to municipal-run systems, Draper Aiden engineering firm has published they do a survey every year. I think they've done it for 30 years or so. And you can look at it, it's online, and our rate is significantly higher than almost every other rate in the state of Virginia.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody?
Thank you. My name is Tom Weaver. My address is 702 Monroe Avenue in Cape Charles. You stole my thunder over here. I was going to ask about this as a regulated utility. That was interesting to find out. And I know I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself here, but I'm really interested in the details of the proposal that you've made to Cape Charles, both the business proposal and the technical proposal. And my question to you, who's going to be the project manager from your standpoint on this, for this waste treatment, water treatment? Are you going to have someone assigned to manage that? And let me tell you where I'm headed with that.
Yeah.
Because I envision, certainly early on, there'll be monthly operations reviews or something where it'll show where you are relative to where you thought you were going to be. So do you have somebody in mind?
So in terms of running the system on a day-to-day basis and then who that would feed up to within our organization, is that the question?
Yeah, somebody that would be on site here, and it could be a technical person, I don't know, but it's sort of like a gatekeeper.
Yep, so you can kind of see this by the way that we're structured, and I'll give a little bit of elaboration about the way that we structure our company. So we have various departments within Virginia American Water, so I oversee the operations. That's the day-to-day field service folks, distribution, maintenance out in the system, plant operators, things of that nature. Christina oversees, all the engineering, so GIS, asset management. She's got several engineers underneath her staff. Christian and his team, water quality, all things water quality. And then we also have, local operations. So the employees who run the system today are the employees who will continue to run the system today. They are the employees that will be here every day. Now, they will be supported and kind of fall up underneath operations to our current employees. So the operations manager for the town of Cape Charles will be Charlie Pakinski. He's our senior manager of operations out of the Hopewell office. Logistically, it's the closest operation that we have here that we can provide support to. He also has dual license. He's got a Class 1 license, which is the highest license you can have on drinking water. He carries a Class 2 on wastewater, which is more than what you need for this plant. And he's getting ready to take his test for Class 1. Christian's team will be here on a regular basis. Christina's team will be here on a regular basis. My team will be here on a regular basis. But the employees who work here today will be the employees running and operating the system.
Okay, and that makes a lot of sense. You don't necessarily need him here, that's for sure. But there needs to be somebody for us as the town to go to if there's an issue.
Yep. The way we have it structured, there will be a superintendent on the water side and a superintendent on the wastewater side that will be here on a day-to-day basis, probably current employees that will be available, for the public to reach out to.
And back to what I was saying a while ago about periodic review, on-site review with our folks here, the town, and your folks. And I'm speaking more specifically to the deliverables that are in your contract, what you say you're going to do, when you're going to do it, what you charge us for it, kind of type of thing. And especially in the beginning of this, so that, we see that everybody's on track.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great point. In our business, by nature, we already have a variety of reports that we do, right? So we do a report for the SEC that talks a lot about those things. VDH and the water quality reporting, we put out annual reports on that. We also have operations reports that we review regularly as a team. And, John has asked those same questions, right? How can I make sure, to keep you accountable to what you say you're going to do? We can go as extensive or as small as we want to. A lot of communities, we check in with them every year, kind of give a status of operations. If John wanted to say, hey, I want to meet with you every month to talk about what's going on, we'll be here. We'll talk to him. Yep.
Okay. The other thing, and I asked this question earlier, is that information, John, available to see the proposal, or is it still confidential and being closely held by your staff? I'd like personally to look at it.
The actual proposal itself is still confidential. However,
Okay.
the pertinent details have been disclosed as far as the rates, the timing, the capital investment, the process for determining sale price. All that's been disclosed, but the actual document itself is confidential.
Yeah, I'm not interested in really the financial side of it in that kind of detail. I'm more interested in the process. I came out of the federal contracting world, and I've dealt with project officers and contracting officers for a long time. So when it's available, I'd like to take a look at it.
Yeah, so Mr. Weaver, I think,
All right.
Mr. Weaver, I think if council chooses to move forward with the negotiating side and then negotiation, as Mr. Hoses said earlier, you will get to see the whole document at that point of what's been negotiated.
Yes.
On behalf of the citizens of Cape Charles from council. So you will get an opportunity to see that, Mr. Weaver.
All right, thank you. That's all I have.
I think you were just going to hand it back to me.
He's trying to take the mic from you.
I'm next, okay. Robert Mucha, 627 Monroe Avenue. I have a comment and a couple concerns that I have that I've read, all the paperwork that you've given us and just things that came to my mind that maybe you can dispel or let me know if I'm full of it. First, I'd like to start out with a little issue that I had years ago, and I had Floyd Energy for my propane company for 25 years. It was a local company up in Exmoor. If I had issues, I'd call them and talk to the lady, and everything would be fine. And then about 5 years ago, AmeriGas, the world's largest, or U.S. largest propane company in the U.S., took over. I had an issue that I needed to respond to right away, called, waited 45 minutes, called again. I even hit the button that says, if this is an emergency and things are going to blow up, press 3 or whatever it was. And I did that and nobody came on, so I left messages, nobody responded. And then it ended up, the only way I could get somebody to respond to me is I emailed the CEO of the company, and I also went online and found the customer relations person on the board of directors that I guess was foolish enough to leave her cell phone number on there and got to talk to her directly, and she was able to take care of the problem. I mean, they closed the place up in Exmoor, and they were doing everything from a central location, and everything was supposed to be great because it's all together. So that kind of taught me something, that bigger is not always better. And although VAW has a whole lot to offer, I'm impressed on, what you have, but, you also have a lot of resources behind you. So that's my story to
Can I
start
tackle
with.
that one first? We'll go one by one. The thing that I first was two things that come to my mind when you say that. The propane industry, not a regulated industry like we are. I mean, we're regulated to a greater degree by the SCC, by VDH. We have specific requirements in those regulations about service. The second thing, to your point, a lot of times those companies operate to where, your local person might live 3 counties away, and it's hard for them to get to you, in those types of situations. That's why we're proposing to keep, such a significant local presence here with the current town employees. So that service that you're receiving today doesn't change, to the negative. It only gets better because they then get more resources. Small things, that we hear about when we talk with employees, over chatting with employees, you hear things like, I spend so much of my time trying to order parts or try to get certain chemicals here. Or, we drove 3 states away to grab a part. Well, all those things are kind of solved by our procurement that we have as a large company. They can focus on what they need to do for the community. So I would expect the service that you're seeing today to only get better. That's my 2 thoughts on that statement. I don't know if that's helpful.
Hey, Casey, so before we leave this topic, would you just explain the call-in center? If someone has an issue and they want to call in for any reason, explain how that's going to work.
Yep, it's 24/7. So in the American Water company, we have a couple of 24/7 call centers, and actually kind of changed that a little bit. We're starting to experiment a little bit with work from home and leveraging that, and I think that helps from a business continuity perspective. But if a customer calls in, or if you go online and report an emergency, the local operations are notified right then and there. And then, depending on what the emergency is, if it's a leak or something like that, we don't wait till the next day to respond. We respond right then and there. And then, based on the specifics of what we find, we'll kind of guide how quickly we respond. If it's a leak, it's kind of small at a meter box and not causing any damage, not a safety concern, we might put that on the next day's schedule. But if it's a leak out in the middle of the road, damaging pavement, things like that, we fix it right away. Yep.
If I could add to that, just from being on the operations
Here, take the mic, John.
Just to add to that, I really didn't need the mic, but we are going to respond fast because I don't want a call from Casey. I certainly don't want it from our CEO, so I can assure you that won't be a problem.
Thanks.
Yeah, I used to run a call center. I understand a lot of those things there. But a couple of the little things that came to my mind as reading the paperwork, it said that the town would have a say in the SCC's decision on what they were going to do. And a say really isn't a controlling factor. It's just a voice, just like what we're doing today, So we don't have any, we're going to be losing our control of this utility once we do this. We're hopefully they'll be good neighbors and they'll listen to our concerns, but they don't have to do what we say. They don't have to do if the pump's too loud and it's going to cost too much to replace it, then, they don't have to do it if they don't want to, but being good neighbors, they just might. But we're losing that control is what I'm saying. And so I look at it at a different aspect. What does the town receive if this goes through? They receive some money to pay off some debt. They're free of their responsibility. They don't have to worry anymore. They could just give an 800 number and say, not my problem. It's my concern, but it's not my problem. And but then what does the town of Cape Charles residents get from this? It's me and him and everybody sitting in this room. What do we get? We don't get any free of responsibility. We don't, hopefully we get a better quality product. We get a faster response time, but, and hopefully we get a promise of lower rates. One of the things I'd like to see that I didn't see, and it might be in proposals somewhere else, is, when you took over a company, where did the rates go for 10 or 15 years? after that, and how did it go on the different places that you took over? Just to give it, and maybe not the minimum requirement, because the minimum amount doesn't really show it, because, the rate goes up after you reach the minimum. So, right now, we have the town council to go to, we have, the town manager to go to complain to, we can stomp our feet, we can say that we want to, kick them off the council if they don't fix our problem now. That's not going to be an issue in the future if we get rid of this utility. Do we get together with the two counties here and get one major sewer and water board together to have the expertise through the whole thing and still have control over it? But apparently we don't have to deal with the SCC now. It's the way I understand it, right? We don't. We do?
No, we don't. No, we don't. No, you regulate.
No, because we're a town.
For the purposes of rate increases, you do not have to engage the SEC. You do have to, of course, comply with EPA and DEQ environmental regulations, the same that they would have to.
So that was my rant. So that's all I have.
Before we move on, should we address some of that? What does the town get? That's a very reasonable question. You're absolutely correct. We lose control. We lose direct control. You've nailed that one. We can make testimony to the SCC, and the SCC's role is to protect the ratepayer, not the company, not the town. So they do listen, but it's not direct control. You're correct. What we get is the expertise that we don't have now. We have had difficulty maintaining our permit requirements. It's going to be public. It's going to be public next week anyway, so I'll say it now. We just got hit with a $22,000 fine from the DEQ. Guess where that $22,000 is going? Into your rates. So what we're getting is the customers are getting very likely lower rates. They're getting dedicated capital for investments when needed. We're getting better quality water that's going to take care of the taste and the hardness issues and all those things we're struggling with right now that we can't do ourselves. There was a third thing and I just lost it. But anyway, that's to that part of it. That's there's pros and cons to everything. So yes, there's that con, but there's all these pros, and we haven't decided yet. But these are what we're weighing out, and that's what thank you for bringing this forward. These are the things we wanted to hear. Is what you're concerned about.
Yeah, and you're getting promised all that. Not that they won't deliver, but you're getting promised that. But that's not in writing. I mean, is that in writing that we're going to get better quality, that we're going to get lower rates, that we're going to get, better service? It's not in writing that this is going to be the status quo. Not that it's not a good company, not that it's just that we're losing the control. That's all I'm saying is we're definitely losing the control, and then it's up to the company to take care of us.
It's a fair point, and to that point, all I can say is that this company has been doing this for a very long time, and we've talked to the other communities where they've been for a long time, and they have been doing a good job in those other communities. So.
You want to address the two and what happened? There was some negative stuff that happened with the two other localities that we reached out to, but they addressed that problem and corrected it for both because it was the same issue. It was a communication issue. And they addressed it and fixed it in both areas. So they do listen.
But we absolutely,
from what we can tell.
Absolutely do. And I think you bring up some really good, fair points. And, my response to the guarantee piece, there will absolutely be some guarantees that any, a potential asset purchase agreement with the town. Some things you can't guarantee. Some things you got to go on research on things like reputation, right? How does a company last in the state of Virginia for 170 years? It doesn't happen unless you can do the things that you say that you can do. And our water quality records, if you go online, you can see those. We've got excellent records. Christian and his team is great at what they do. Certainly exceeds the average water quality standards in the state of Virginia on a national perspective. But the other thing that I would put out in terms of listening, I wish my boss was here. Barry Suits, president of the company, he's got a rule. And his rule is, if he gets a complaint from the mayor, I'm addressing it that day. And his expectation is that I send him an email letting him know it's done that day. And I know these folks are smiling because they got the same thing from Barry, but we are responsive. We do have our faults, right? I mean, things happen, the weather events happen, things like that. We work through them. That's the strength of our team. But we, are not a new company. We've got a good reputation. We hope that means something for this community.
I'd like to excuse me, to finish up on that. You made a comment about what's it for you guys as he walks away. Sorry, I just want to comment one more thing. All 7 of us here are citizens as well, and all 7 of us here works for you. We don't work for ourselves. So this is your wastewater treatment plant. We're just kind of a representative of the citizens that's here. And so if there's an issue and it's brought to my attention, it's like he said, I will reach out to who I need to reach out to. And I've been known to raise some cane before, so it's our concerns too. Control is, that's definitely a concern of ours as well. So, but that's something that we're going to sit down, if council chooses to go to the negotiating process, hopefully we'll be able to work out some of those things through the negotiation process. Who's got the mic?
Dave Daugherty, 509 Nectarine. What kind of legal entity are you proposing? Is it going to be an LLC, C Corp? Do you have a C Corp that owns different LLCs for each location? How's that going to affect legal liability? Like if you have an accident over there, or say you have one here, is it going to fall over us, or is it going to be spread out through the corporation? I know the water rates are shared, but are there legal shields in between locations?
So as a guy who fixes leaks, just not an accountant, Dennis, would you be able to kind of walk through the setup of the company, maybe answer, some of those? I think from a broad standpoint on the liability issue, there is some protection there. We do operate kind of as individual, companies that feed into corporate. We all have kind of our own insurance policies. But Dennis, you want to speak to the specifics on kind of how we're structured?
Thank you. Good afternoon. So Virginia American Water is a wholly owned subsidiary of American Water Works, which is the parent company, publicly listed. In terms of the structure of each individual area, they're not set up as LLCs or anything like that. They're actually just brought in as part of the overall Virginia American Corporation.
So you're under the one umbrella of Virginia Water?
Right, it would be all under one.
Yep, that's correct. At the district level.
Right.
Correct.
So the benefit of that is the consolidated rates. You can kind of think about consolidation rates like an insurance premium, right? We all pay insurance for our vehicles. If you get into an accident, those costs associated with that are spread out across a bigger rate base. It's what keeps, any individual from having to incur a huge expense if something happens. Instead of accidents, we're talking about capital investments and things like that. So in that essence, yes, we're all underneath one umbrella, and it provides good protection for all of our customers.
I just have a short question and a comment, and maybe I missed something.
Ms. Davis, can you please use your microphone?
Maybe I missed something, but we've been talking about the utilities bill. Is the garbage included in that also, and will that be different?
That's different. That's not included in this at all.
So, okay, so we won't know what that would be. So that means the bill will be higher. Okay, and my comment, quality water is something that I'm very interested in, because I think it's ridiculous when we have to go buy water and we're paying a water bill. So hopefully that would definitely change based on what you're saying. Quality water. Thank you. That's all.
Thank you, Ms. Davis.
At the last meeting,
Please sta-
at the last meeting,
No, ma'am, no, miss- please state your name.
Diane D'Amico, 602 Jefferson Avenue. For Eric, right? Okay. At the last meeting, several people brought up the fact that you have this through the 10th year, but in the 11th year, our debt is done and we have no idea what's going to happen to our rates. That's one question for you. The second question is for anyone brave enough to take it on, and that is, could someone please talk about the Annexation Agreement and how it relates to this?
That person will not be me talking about the Annexation Agreement, but the first question I will be happy to ask, or answer. It's a good question. Why 10 years? What are the impacts that we know of after 10 years, and what are the impacts that we don't know of past 10 years? So you're correct, there is a portion of the water and wastewater funds debt that is extinguished in fiscal year 2031. So it's about mid 400 level, $100,000, and it will essentially be paid off. Our forecasts include an assumption that over that period of time, which is 10 years from now, the assets that depreciate and wear out essentially over that time will need an increased level of capital investment. Is it going to be a one-to-one? Who knows? Is it going to be more expensive to replace assets at that time than it is now? Yes. Is it going to be more expensive than the debt you're currently paying now? Maybe. It may be less expensive. I can say, having built these projections, every 3 to 5 years, the town reevaluates its capital plan. I guarantee you that in year 2028 and 2029, when that process happens, there will be more projects than there are today in that capital plan. That yellow line, even if that delta is lower, will likely not decrease. The system is going to need additional capital investment. It is going to be more expensive to make those capital investments. And this is also true for Virginia American, by the way. Their capital costs, their access to capital structure might be a little different, but the cost to put a pipe in the ground is the cost to put a pipe in the ground, largely. So the reason we didn't go out past 10 years to either 15 or 20, even though the assets will certainly last that long as you replace them, is because our assumptions sort of deteriorate in terms of their certainty in those years, and we just don't know exactly what the level of capital investment will be past those years, although we are confident that it will be increased as compared to today.
I'll also chime in on that. Diane, the reason, it's correct that our debt service will start to diminish after 10 years, but not all of it at one time. Some of it's going to go several years beyond that. One of the assumptions that's built into the first 10 years is that we have no additional debt service added, okay? We cannot make that assumption beyond 10 years. As Eric just said, as additional infrastructure is needed, if we were to put cash to it, that would be a rate shock, right? Because all that's got to be absorbed by the ratepayers right away. More likely, we would take out additional debt to smooth that out. So to say that all of the debt service that we are currently paying now will become available to just offset rates after year 10 is not an accurate projection. So we can't assume that additional debt service will not be taken on after 10 years. It just gets so fuzzy after 10 years. Really, it's fuzzy after 5 years. 10 years is really the maximum we could go and with a straight face tell you we think this is reasonable. So that's kind of where we are. Why that's in there. I think Eric addressed. I don't know if it was today or Wednesday. They had to extrapolate their analysis based on our capital plan, which only goes out 5 years. So there's already uncertainty in years 5 to 10, right? Going past 10 just would not produce credible data. So, did you have anything else, Casey, you wanted to add?
I do want to correct one thing. and I think your assumptions are fair for purposes of modeling because it keeps it even. But the reality of it is we can put pipe in the ground cheaper than the town can. We can replace meters cheaper than the town can. we can buy chemicals at a rate cheaper than the town can. And the reason for it is not because we're better negotiators, it's because we are larger negotiators, right? When the town purchases 100 meters and I'm purchasing 100,000 meters, across American Water as a whole, you get a better price for that. So, I wanted to call that distinction is because that is one of the big benefits that we don't really talk about a lot that the town would get with us.
Okay, moving on to your second question. Oh, go ahead, Bob. You want to take it? Oh, okay.
Somebody take the annex agreement.
All right, so. No, Diane's second question was about the annexation agreement. So just very basically, when the annexation of that land came to the town, the developer agreed at that time that when our utilities, the water and wastewater plants, the plant facilities themselves, when they reach their permitted capacity, presumably due to the to the developer's demands, that they would come to the table and help fund the expansion of those plants. Okay, the annexation agreement was very poorly worded. Okay, it's not specific at all. There's no dollar amounts attached to it, so it's a very nebulous thing. However, it is accurate to say, at the moment, the developer has a liability, and the town has an asset. Okay, so what we would need to do as part of the negotiation phase, should the council decide to move to that stage, we would have to bring the developer into the discussions. So this wouldn't just be a two-party agreement; it would be a three-party agreement, because we would have to bring the developer in to transfer their liability from the annexation agreement into this agreement. I don't know what that's going to look like. None of us know what that's going to look like. That's something we would have to work out during the negotiations. Okay.
Go ahead.
Can I ask a question? First.
No, she's been trying.
Oh, it's okay. Go ahead.
My name is Phil Getkin. I live at 602 Jefferson. And I just wanted to bring up the cost of publicly used water again. You mentioned the fire department and what the cost of that might be. And you indicated that that would probably not be any expense to the town for fighting fires. But the town, I'm assuming, uses other amounts of public water back here in the bathroom, at town hall, the police station, throughout the town where public water is used. I'm not sure how that is currently accounted for, but I'm assuming since we own the asset that we are, in essence, we get free water, the town gets free water. And I have a personal interest in that I am currently using public water. I am involved with the New Roots Youth Garden in town, and to me it's very important, and the cost of water would be a very important issue to us there. So does anyone know what the cost of water would be to the town? I'm assuming you're not going to give the town free water. We're going to be one of your customers.
Yep, so I'm going to answer that, both aspects of what you brought up. The first one, what we refer to as like a public authority rate. We do have that, for our consolidated tariff in Virginia, and the town, would become a part of that. So things like toilets for offices and things like that, yes, they're most likely will be a water bill. Now the timing of that is up, for a little bit of a negotiation and then also input from the SEC, right? Just like the move to consolidated rates, there is some flexibility in that with the timing. But for the instance that you brought up, I'll give you an example. In the city of Hopewell, as we all remember when COVID came out and vaccinations became a thing, we had a lot of volunteer type folks, wanting to stand up locations for people to get vaccinated. We metered the water usage, but we gave a credit for the water usage to kind of give back to the community. And we've done that in a number of different ways for various different groups. So, that type of community partnership, going back to what JR talked about, is absolutely something that we bring to the table for instances like what you're bringing up. Yep.
To answer the first part of your question about what exactly is covered in the rates in terms of municipal use, so the largest municipal use in the town is the harbor operation, and that is paid for in the rate. The smaller amount of municipal operation is not. However, obviously there are costs associated with that, and that's essentially covered by the utility as a whole in the spread over everybody's rate that pays. So I think that answers the status quo, and that assumption to continue that is included in our forecasts.
Just to clarify, when Eric says paid for the rates, the rate charged to docking customers
Yes.
at the harbor, it's in the harbor docking rate, it's reimbursed to the utility.
So yeah, so the rates paid by people who make use of that water, that is accounted for in the utility.
We can put you in a shallow well.
Now? Okay. All right. So this is really just a small clarification of expectations, and maybe it's not necessary for being so persistent. May not be necessary. But I've heard a couple times people have said, when there's a leak, we're going to be on it, we're going to fix it and everything else. So we own 2 properties, one on Mason Avenue, the business district, one on a residential here. And we probably know all this, but I just think we all ought to be on the same page, which is if there's a leak, more often than not, it's between the house and your meter. And it could be a giant leak, as in like go on like a gush for a long time. So for you all to say, we'll be right there, you may be setting yourself up for people expecting something that you're not going to deliver, because the reality is, when it's between the house and the meter, we're going to be waiting for a plumber.
That's right. Yep, no,
So I just want to make sure we don't go away with different expectations about how instantaneously you're going to be responding to a leak. That's all.
Yeah, so
they're done that.
with that, that's a great point. Leaks on the customer side is much different than leaks that would be on assets that we would potentially purchase. However, if there's a leak on a customer side that's causing damage, or that there's a concern, we absolutely will shut it off in a timely manner. But just like anything, if you had a faucet leak in your house, it would be up to the homeowner to address quickly. Correct.
So in your system, to follow up on hers, in your systems that you have scattered throughout the state, y'all got digital meters?
When you're making capital investment, you want to make sure that you're doing it in a way that's responsible and taking advantage of the life cycle of assets that you've already invested in. So we have some meters, that are out there that haven't quite reached their life expectancy, that aren't digital. And we have some, that have, and we've replaced them. Right now, every meter that we're replacing as a part of our regular meter replacement cycle is digital. And we have 2 types of, this is getting into the weeds, but meter reading systems. So AMI, where you don't even have to drive by to read meters, it just goes to a tower or a cellular point. Those are the types of meters that we're putting in. What that will ultimately give is our customers the ability to log online and see your meter usage real time, at like 15-minute increments. It's really cool technology for customers.
That's where I was going with that. So does that system, let's just say her business, just a water leak, and does it pick up on unusual usage?
So the AMI technology does. We actually get those alerts on our end, but customers have the ability, or will have the ability, if they got that type of meter, to set up their own alerts. Again, without going into the details of Cape Charles, that type of capital planning would be based off the age of the meters that are here. So we're not making a commitment to say, hey, we're going to change everybody's meters, but we will start changing them with normal replacement cycles. Yep.
Just to clarify, I'm assuming you already understand that a lot of the infrastructure here is terracotta pipes that have been the sewer and the water. But I mean, anyway, all of it. Over time, this old town from whatever it was, our house is 1914, our building 1928, have a lot of problems. And actually, we don't need the meter alert because we get the geyser effect. We kind of know, but.
That's a great point. I made a comment earlier that we're kind of all in the same boat, right? Water systems are getting older. Wastewater systems are getting older. That's not unique to the town of Cape Charles. We deal with that. A big difference on an operations standpoint, whenever I was in the field, my boss put a clamp on it, that stops the leak then, does nothing for the long term. Now the majority of our responses to main breaks are to replace pipe. So when we have a leak, if we can, we're going to replace pipe. And then if we have enough of the smaller pipe replacements, we're going to redo the whole main, which goes over to Christina's group. Yep.
We've had, in the prior years, even the town has had this problem. We've had internal leaks in houses that turn into swimming pools in their basement in the wintertime. So part of the issue, we didn't know about, matter of fact, one house over on Monroe had, was 42,000 gallons of water that leaked over the entire weekend. And we didn't know about it until it was coming out of the house. So we had issues like that even today, if we have that issue, we won't know because there's no way to determine that until it starts coming out of the house.
And the town currently gives like a credit for those giant volumes of leaks, like
The other thing that's kind of nice about the meter technology is, for the leaks, to see how much water is going through the meter is a nice thing. But from a health and safety standpoint, when you have backflow events and water coming back from the house into the system, those meters capture that and give us alerts as well. So that's, kind of a protection for the community with that technology.
Tom Weaver again. I just want to leave you with a term that I was quite familiar with when I was working. It's called vertical integration. That's sort of a decision point when you run the business about whether or not you do it yourself or you bring in expertise to do it for you. It could be cost-driven. I think in this case, if you look around how technology has changed, how the government regulation has changed over time, when a town was established, you could do a lot of that stuff yourself because nobody was looking over your shoulder, the technology wasn't as sophisticated, and so forth. And if I'm not mistaken, and I certainly, John, this is not an indictment or pointing the finger anywhere, but this is the third time now that I've heard there's this $22,000, $23,000 fine in the last couple of years. It may not be totally related to each other, but to me, when you're bringing your expertise in with your equipment, you're the expert. You're the person who probably is more capable of doing that than we could do it for ourselves. And that's when I say you look at the vertical integration and decide on what makes sense to do and what makes sense to let someone else do for you. So I'll just leave you with that thought.
Anybody have any other questions? All right, well,
Mr. Mayor, could I say something before we wrap up?
absolutely.
I just want to say something because I neglected to say something on Wednesday night, and I feel really bad about it. And I want to go on the record. Part of our reasoning for considering this option is that we've said we need expertise, better expertise than we have now. And I want to make it absolutely clear that I and all of us have absolute confidence in all of our current utility employees. They are excellent operators, okay? I did not mean to disparage any of them. They are doing a great job. They were trained to be operators, and that's what they do, and they do a great job doing it. What we need is above that, the engineering support, regulatory expertise, people who understand the ins and outs of the permits. Those are the things that our staff was never trained to do, okay? That's an expertise that the town does not have, nor have we ever had. So yes, I made reference to this recent fine, but we've been getting fines back since 2007, and we've in many warnings, and that's why it's critical for us to get. It's critical for us to give our staff the support they need. If we keep the system, we're going to have to go out and get contract management to bring in and to assist them. If we sell, these people will give them that assistance. But I just wanted to make sure it was clear, and I wanted to go on record that I didn't mean to disparage any of our staff. They're doing a wonderful job. They're qualified to do what they're doing. And I neglected to say that on Wednesday, and I apologize.
I think we all feel the same about that. Anyway, again, thank you all for giving up this nice sunny Saturday afternoon and enjoying us. This is,
Especially John on his birthday.
yeah.
No.
Who's going to lead the song?
No, but anyway, look, this is a big decision moving forward one way or the other, whether we keep it or whether we sell it. And so the town involvement, the citizens' involvement is very, very crucial to this process. So there's going to be more public input sessions or hearings about this topic, and we definitely want you to show up. You can always, if you have any questions, you can email somebody. We'll get it to the appropriate people and get it answered.
Email to me.
Email it.
Send all questions or comments. You can call me, email me, send them to me, and I'll either answer them or get them to the right person.
Yep, so.
John, one last question. Just, it's a three-pronged agreement. What happens if the developer doesn't buy in? What happens? Does it still go forward? Like, what happens with that?
I'm not going to speculate on that. It depends. It depends on a great number of things.
No, but I'm saying, could we move forward without the developer?
It's possible.
Possible?
It's possible,
Okay.
but it's too complex to say to explain concisely. There's a liability there. There's an asset that the town has that we don't want to lose. I mean, ultimately, if we wanted to give that up, we could move forward without it, but that's not our going-in position.
Okay, that's what I just wanted to ask.
I just want to encourage everybody to take some of the extra packets to your neighbor. If everybody takes a packet and gives it to their neighbor, it will help spread accurate information of people who couldn't be here. I know there's a lot of people watching on Facebook, but I find the handouts to be very helpful.
And I think moving forward with that being said, I think if John puts out a message pertaining to this, I believe that information will be down at the water, down at Town Hall.
At the utility clerk in Town Hall?
There you go.
Right, yes. We'll have packets in Town Hall if anybody wants to come by and get some.
So, anyway, thank you for bailing me out on that.
Were there any questions from Facebook?
We don't answer questions from Facebook. This is an in-person meeting, so Facebook or any form of computerized communications we cannot take by law. So, with that being said, can I get a motion to dismiss?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you all.